What's up everybody, hope all is well. I wanted to make a quick video about some recent news for Diablo 4 and Hearthstone monetization that gives us some insight into how Overwatch 2 might turn out in this regard. We're a month away from launch and Blizz has yet to share anything beyond the fact that there will be a battle pass. But the news we'll cover today somewhat reveals the company's grander strategy here. Things are coming into focus and by the end of this video the only real question left will be the price of it all. So let's get into it. First, a little background. When Blizz announced Overwatch would be a live service, we all raised an eyebrow. We know what that means, what it entails, and the potential impact it has on games. Soon after, they confirmed it will have a battle pass, but even today, a month later, have provided essentially no context. How much, what's included, how long will it take to complete, did they roll over, and so on. Additionally, a few weeks back, Overwatch players started receiving surveys inquiring as to what they'd pay for certain items, and some of the prices suggested were significant. And on top of all that, Blizz won't even acknowledge something we all know is coming, an in-game shop. Now on its own, none of this is necessarily a bad sign. Worrying, yes, but without context, all we can do is take it at face value. Likely an intentional move by Blizzard. It's better for them if the negative noise and press regarding monetization is overshadowed by the hype surrounding launch. Personally, I was rolling with it. Like I said, worried, but still holding out faith Overwatch would rise above the rest and not be so bad as to put people off from the game. The first crack in the armor came with the Watchpoint pack. Let's be honest, it was basically a $40 entry fee for the beta. Technically, it's quote-unquote worth it. It includes OG Overwatch, a battle pass, and 2,000 in virtual currency, but regardless of how you slice it, beta access was the selling point, and almost all beta players are existing Overwatch players who didn't need, want, or even really care for the other junk they included. Now you might think I'm beating a dead horse here, but the nuance behind it underscores a very critical point. This is Blizzard now. Everything's a live service and everything has a price, and it's important to be aware of that when thinking this through. But let's say we do believe the Watchpoint pack was an act of good faith that Blizz saw as a legitimately good and fair value. Doesn't that failure shake your trust and faith in the franchise? How can they misunderstand their audience so much? Was it even a misunderstanding or rather intentional, and what does that suggest for their future monetization efforts? So that's where I am, or rather was, until seeing some news about Diablo 4 and Hearthstone, after which my opinion on the matter shifted some, and it begged an even bigger question that doesn't really have an answer. Why is every Blizzard game being hyper-monetized just months before being handed over to Microsoft? It seems very antithetical to Phil Spencer's player-first marketing. Something's fishy here. Let's start with Diablo. The August developer update dropped a bombshell. Diablo 4 will officially be a live service. To understand what this really means, you need some context, so let's back up to Diablo 3. Diablo 3, despite employing a seasonal model, is not a live service. No price, no battle pass, no new content. So that's a pretty big change itself. Beyond that though, everything's staying the same. It will not be free to play, so you have to buy the full game like Diablo 3, and you have to pay for expansions like Diablo 3. The devs did state unequivocally that despite this change, you will not be able to pay for player power in Diablo 4. I like to see that, but the cynic in me sees a little wiggle room. They say the seasonal design requires all hero power come from playing, which is good. It's fair. The season races are what matters. But what about when the season's over and that character is moved to your general hero pool? Will players be able to buy power for their characters then, when there's no competition? Honest question. As for the battle pass, it'll have all the trappings we've come to hate. Free and premium tiers, cosmetics, which they admitted will look better than free cosmetics, but arguably not much, premium currency, and seasonal boosts and tier purchases. They'll also have a cash shop. So that's a lot and a pretty big change for the Diablo community, but there is a ray of light at the end of this tunnel. What Blizzard's promise in return for your money is significant, and in all honesty, if they can pull it off, pretty exciting. Each season will bring new major quest lines and gameplay features. They'll introduce new areas to explore, new characters and lore. They'll have live events that provide gateways to new adventures and rare loot, and a lot more. I can see potential parallels here with Overwatch 2 PvE content. Now let's move on to Hearthstone. For transparency's sake, I'd like to say I don't play it. In fact, I've never played it. Not dissing it, just digital card games aren't my thing. So I apologize if any of this is inaccurate. Please let me know if so. Hearthstone is also going live service, but it's a lot more obfuscated, and as an outsider, I've got to say, it looks awful. I don't know where to start. They're adding a virtual currency called runestones. They're adding a season pass. That virtual currency can only be obtained with real world cash purchases. That seasonal pass can only be obtained with the virtual currency. And they're converting the entire store to run off the virtual currency as well. So, okay, rough start. The battle pass will have separate progression tracks offering different rewards based on the game mode you're playing. They're saying by breaking these out, it offers them a chance to provide rewards that are customized to that game mode, but the reality of this for players is just that it means you need to now complete several progression tracks before the season ends. Otherwise, you lose all the rewards you paid for, but didn't play enough to unlock unlock. They're also breaking XP out into different game modes. All this is just their way of forcing you to play more. Again, I don't play Hearthstone, but that sounds like a confusing mess. It sure looks like gamers will have to pay more and play a lot more for the same or less. And despite being a card game, which is, comparatively speaking, easy to develop for versus say an RPG, there's pretty much zero talk about what all this does for the player. Where's the huge new content drop to accompany it? And there's one small line that made my competitive spirit rage. Do you see this? Do you see this? The ability to choose from among 4 heroes at the beginning of a match is changing to paid only. Why? Otherwise you only get 2. That's just straight up pay to win. Good job, Blizzard. Sheesh, man. If that's not predatory, I don't know what is. So what's all that mean for Overwatch 2? Well, what sticks out to me is how different Diablo 4 is from Hearthstone in terms of their monetization strategy. That suggests to me that while Activision Blizzard had mandated everything be a live service, they've allowed each team some latitude to decide what and how it's all implemented. And that bodes well for Overwatch, as I do sincerely think that that team in particular has the player's best interest in mind. So while we'll almost certainly see a game loaded with microtransactions, I'm hopeful they won't be egregiously priced. Specifically, I'm betting on a hybrid of what we see from Diablo 4 and Hearthstone, with the distinction being an eventual separation of PvP and PvE monetization. PvP will be exactly what we've come to expect from every AAA shooter. Free to play, a season pass, cash shop, and virtual currency, pretty straightforward. But for PvE, we'll pay for the game, pay for expansions, and I can see it getting its own reward track, meaning we'll buy the season pass, it'll have a reward track for PvP, and a second for PvE, each with their own themes, rewards, and XP. I assume both the virtual currency and cash shop will be universal. That's pretty much what I expected in the free-to-play video I made a few months back, but seeing Diablo 4 confirmed the model and Hearthstone's novel approach to multiple tracks evolved my thinking a bit. Like I said earlier, the only real question left is price. Honest truth, I'm hopeful, cautiously optimistic even, that this might actually work out for one reason. Both the Overwatch and Diablo teams have really been emphasizing how much their games have grown, and they did so specifically to meet the demands and expectations that come with feeding a relentlessly hungry live service. Whether or not going live service is the right move will take time to answer, but it's starting to look more and more like Blizzard's making an honest effort here. If the teams really have grown and they can continually put out timely content, and if they price the service fairly, it will be wildly successful. But that's a lot of ifs. What will make it or break it for Overwatch specifically is if they can do it for PvE. Adding a new hero or map for PvP will be relatively straightforward, but adding new entire quest lines and areas and enemies and mechanics to PvE will require substantial effort. And with that, I'm done. Appreciate you taking the time. Take care of one another, and I will see you soon.